There are moments in life when you sit in silence and begin to question the people around you. You ask yourself, why do I feel drained after being with certain people? Why do I feel smaller, colder, less alive? Not every smiling face is kind. Not every warm gesture holds love. Some people are hollow vessels of pain, filled with shadows they never faced, and they pour that pain into others. Let me show you the 5 signs of bad people, not to judge, but to protect your peace, to awaken your inner wisdom, and to remind you, you deserve clarity, not confusion. You deserve truth, not manipulation. You deserve to breathe freely, not walk on eggshells. They twist your reality to control your mind. It begins subtly, so subtly that you don't even recognize it as manipulation. One moment, you're confident in what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. And the next, you're second-guessing yourself. You're asking questions like, did I overreact? Or maybe I misunderstood. You start to doubt your own memory, your own intuition. This is how the distortion begins. Bad people do not confront with clarity. They challenge with confusion. When you confront them with truth, they do not respond with understanding. They respond with denial, distortion, and diversion. They shift the focus. They turn the mirror toward you. They twist your concern into blame. You're too sensitive. You're always making something out of nothing. I never said that. These phrases aren't just dismissive, they are weapons, designed to break your sense of clarity, to fracture your perception of what's real. The worst part is they don't do it loudly. They don't raise their voice. They don't scream. No, they do it calmly, coolly, with a false sense of rationality that makes you feel like you're the irrational one. You start to retreat into silence. You question your own emotions. You become quiet not out of peace, but out of fear that you're somehow always wrong. This is psychological erosion. It's not just deception, it's control. You begin to walk on eggshells, not because they are dangerous, but because you've been conditioned to believe that your truth is unstable. They will convince you that you misunderstood events, even when you remember them clearly. They'll insist you're exaggerating, even when the facts are plain. And when you resist, they use silence. Cold, punishing silence. The kind that makes you feel like a child who misbehaved. The kind that isn't about resolution, it's about punishment. Over time, your thoughts are no longer your own. You start measuring your actions based on how they'll respond, rather than what feels right to you. You hesitate before speaking, before expressing, before questioning, because you fear how they'll flip your words back on you. They make lies sound like reason. They make guilt feel like love. And they make you feel like the problem even when they're the ones causing harm. This is not a flaw in your perception. It is a deliberate tactic. Bad people distort truth to maintain power. Because if you believe in your version of events, they lose control. But if they can make you doubt yourself, they win. Their goal is not harmony, it's dominance. They don't want a relationship built on understanding. They want one built on imbalance, where you carry the confusion and they hold the certainty. They will call you crazy when you get too close to the truth. They will call you dramatic when you get too emotional. They will call you toxic when you start to speak up. All to keep their illusion intact. All to keep your voice small. And it works until you begin to see it. Until you start remembering that your thoughts are valid. That your emotions are real. That your version of the story matters. Because it does. When you begin to reclaim that, even just a little, the illusion begins to break. And with it, their control starts to dissolve.
They feed off your weakness and fear your growth. At first, they appear supportive. They ask how you're doing, they act interested in your goals, and they may even cheer for you, just enough to gain your trust. But the truth begins to show slowly, in moments that feel small, yet leave a heavy imprint. When you share good news, their response is muted. Their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. When you express hope or ambition, they shift the conversation. They downplay your dreams. They poke holes in your confidence with questions that sound concerned but are laced with doubt. Asterisk, are you sure that's realistic? Asterisk or asterisk, what if it doesn't work out? Asterisk, bad people pretend to care, but deep down your growth threatens them. They are comfortable when you are struggling, when you're unsure of yourself, when your light is dim. Because as long as you're beneath them, Emotionally, mentally, financially, or socially, they feel safe. Your weakness gives them power. Your dependence gives them purpose. And if you start to rise even slightly, they feel exposed. They fear that your confidence might illuminate their insecurity. They fear that your independence might remove their relevance. So they subtly sabotage. They give advice that keeps you stuck. They encourage decisions that limit your potential. They distract you when you're focused, discourage you when you're motivated, and criticize you when you make progress. They may do it with a smile, or even humor, disguising their envy as a joke. Asterisk, don't get ahead of yourself. Asterisk, asterisk, you've changed. Asterisk, asterisk, don't forget where you came from. Asterisk, these aren't just words. They are attempts to anchor you in a version of yourself that they can manage. A version that doesn't challenge their own lack of growth. What they truly want is to keep you small enough to control, insecure enough to need them, and doubtful enough to rely on their approval. Your vulnerability is their opportunity. They listen closely to your fears, not to comfort you, but to store them as ammunition. In moments of conflict or tension, they'll bring them up to disarm you. Asterisk, didn't you say you weren't good at this? Asterisk, asterisk, I thought you said you didn't believe in yourself. Asterisk, they use your pain not to heal it, but to reinforce it. Because when you feel broken, they feel whole. But when you start to shift, when you set boundaries, when you say no, when you become more confident, they feel threatened. They will accuse you of arrogance. They will say you're becoming selfish. But what's really happening is they can no longer feed on the version of you that doubts yourself. They can no longer find comfort in your confusion. They can no longer lean on your silence to keep themselves elevated. Their fear is not about you becoming someone bad. It's about you becoming someone free. Someone who no longer needs their validation to feel valuable. Someone who no longer needs their permission to grow. They panic because they see the balance of power tipping. Not in your favor, but toward equality. And equality terrifies those who build their identity on dominance. This kind of person will not openly admit their discomfort with your success. Instead, they'll shift emotionally. They'll grow distant, cold, critical. They'll begin comparing you to others, highlighting your flaws, reminding you of your past. Anything to slow your momentum, anything to keep you from rising too far, too fast. And if you're not aware of the pattern, you might even believe them. You might pull back. You might minimize yourself just to maintain the peace. But deep down, something will feel off. You'll feel the tension between who you're becoming and who they want you to stay. That tension is the truth. That resistance is the evidence. It's not your growth that's the problem. It's their fear of being left behind. They fake empathy but lack genuine emotion. At first, they appear caring. They know exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to wear the face of compassion. They mirror your sadness. They nod in all the right places. And they say things like, I understand, or asterisk, I'm here for you. Asterisk, but over time, something feels missing. Their words don't match their actions. Their comfort feels rehearsed. Their concern feels hollow. You begin to sense that they're not connecting with your pain, they're performing. True empathy is felt, not just heard. It comes with presence, with depth, with a kind of silence that says, asterisk, I feel this with you. Asterisk, but bad people don't experience that depth. They simulate it. They watch how others respond in emotional situations and copy it. Not to connect, but to maintain an image, to gain trust, to make you think they care when, in reality, they are emotionally distant. Their interest in your suffering isn't rooted in love. It's rooted in strategy. When you're hurting, they show up, but only long enough to be seen. They'll text at the right moment, offer a few comforting words, maybe even do a small favor. But they won't stay when it gets difficult. They won't sit with your silence. They won't check in the next day. Their concern expires quickly because it was never real. It was a transaction, a way to appear kind without actually being kind. And when you're happy, when you're succeeding, when you're finally in a good place, they vanish. Or worse, they become distant, quiet, dismissive. They don't celebrate your light because it casts a shadow on their emptiness. They don't engage with your joy because it reminds them they cannot truly feel it. They may even act irritated by your excitement, as if your peace is a burden. That's the moment you start to realize they only show up when you're broken. Their version of care is conditional. It serves a purpose. It's not given freely, it's given with expectation. They may comfort you one day and use it against you the next. Asterisk, after everything I did for you. Asterisk, asterisk. I was there when no one else was. Asterisk, they turn your moments of weakness into tools for guilt. Their help is not help. It's leverage. A future weapon masked as a past kindness. And when you try to express your emotions, when you show them pain, frustration, or even vulnerability, they often respond with impatience or detachment. You'll hear phrases like, "You're too emotional," or "Just get over it," or asterisk, "Why are you still talking about this?" Asterisk, that's because they never actually cared. They just played the part long enough to get close. Bad people use fake empathy to build trust, to lower your guard, to make you feel seen, only so they can control what you reveal. They don't offer safety. They offer surveillance. They collect your emotions not to understand them, but to exploit them later. And in the process, they create confusion within you. Because on the surface, they seem kind, but deep down you feel unseen, unheard, alone. What makes it more damaging is that their false empathy can delay your healing. You begin to question your emotional instincts. You wonder if you're asking for too much, if your expectations are too high, if maybe you're just hard to connect with. But the truth is, you are not the problem. You are simply standing in front of someone who has mastered the appearance of care, but not the essence of it. Real empathy does not disappear when it's inconvenient. It doesn't demand attention or recognition. It doesn't perform, it participates. You don't have to chase it or beg for it. You feel it in silence. You feel it when no one is watching. And once you experience the real thing, the fake becomes painfully obvious. They always play the victim to avoid responsibility. When something goes wrong, no matter how clear the facts are, they shift the blame. They twist the situation until they become the one who was hurt, misunderstood, or mistreated. Even if their actions caused real pain, even if their choices led to chaos, they will find a way to position themselves as the wounded party. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a pattern. It's a defense mechanism that protects their ego and avoids accountability. At first, it may seem like they're just being vulnerable. You may even feel sympathy for them. They speak with emotion, with detail, with carefully chosen stories that highlight how others wronged them. You start to believe they've been treated unfairly, that they're just a misunderstood person trying their best. But over time, you notice something strange. Every story they tell ends the same way, with them as the victim and someone else as the villain. There is no reflection, no self-awareness, no honest admission of their own mistakes. When you try to bring up your feelings, how their words affected you, how their behavior caused harm, they deflect. They change the topic. Or they get defensive and say, "You're always blaming me," or asterisk, "Why do you make me feel like the bad guy?" Asterisk, they turn the conversation into an emotional trap, where your pain becomes their proof of suffering. You find yourself comforting them when you were the one who was hurt. You apologize just to keep the peace, even though deep down you know you weren't wrong. This tactic isn't just about avoiding guilt, it's about control. When they make themselves the victim, they shift the emotional power in the relationship. They gain sympathy, attention, and protection. They use your kindness against you, knowing you'll hesitate to push back too hard. Because you're compassionate, because you don't want to seem cruel. They manipulate that compassion to avoid consequences. They also weaponize past wounds. Maybe they had a difficult childhood, maybe someone in their past betrayed them, maybe they've experienced real pain. But instead of healing, they use those experiences as shields. Every disagreement becomes an opportunity to bring up old scars, not for growth, but to silence you. They use their history to excuse their present behavior, to demand endless understanding without offering any in return. The more you confront them, the more they escalate the victim role. They might cry, act overwhelmed, or accuse you of being heartless. It becomes emotionally exhausting to challenge them. You start to doubt yourself. You start to wonder if maybe you really are being unfair, if maybe you are the one causing harm. That's the power of the victim narrative. It makes you question your truth while reinforcing theirs. In relationships, accountability is a sign of maturity. But bad people avoid it at all costs because accountability means change. It means facing the discomfort of being wrong. It means breaking down the illusion they've built around themselves. And they can't allow that. Because without the victim role, they would have to confront who they really are, and they're not ready for that kind of honesty. Their need to be seen as innocent is so strong that they will rewrite history, exaggerate details, or outright lie. They'll talk to others and paint you as the aggressor. They'll gather sympathy from people who don't know the full story. They'll isolate you by making others see you as the problem. It's not just manipulation, it's a defense of their false identity. You may try to help them see the truth. You may try to show them how their behavior affects others. But they will resist. Because in their mind, acknowledging fault feels like losing control. And to them, control is everything. They slowly make you feel small and doubtful. It never starts with open disrespect or loud rejection. Instead, it begins quietly, with subtle remarks, sideways glances, and dismissive tones. You might express an idea, and they respond with a shrug or a half-hearted comment like, "That's interesting," or asterisk, if that works for you. Asterisk, these words seem harmless on the surface, but they plant seeds of uncertainty in your mind. You start wondering if what you said was silly, if your thoughts were not worth much. And slowly, that self-doubt begins to grow. They don't have to tell you directly that you're not good enough. They show it in small, persistent ways. They interrupt you when you speak, look at their phone while you're talking, or offer advice that's cloaked in condescension. They question your judgment not to help you improve, but to make you second-guess yourself. You begin to feel like your opinions don't matter, like your presence isn't important. This is how your confidence begins to shrink, one small dismissal at a time. At first, you may defend them. You tell yourself they're just tired, stressed, or misunderstood. You overlook the small things because they don't seem serious. But over time, you realize it's a pattern. They downplay your achievements. When you succeed, they say it was luck. When you fail, they say they saw it coming. When you're happy, they act indifferent. When you're hurt, they call you sensitive. You start to feel like nothing you do is ever quite right. That feeling becomes familiar, and eventually it becomes normal. They create an atmosphere where you begin to rely on them for validation, but they never fully give it. Instead, they offer just enough approval to keep you close, while keeping you hungry for more. They want you to feel uncertain without them. They want you to believe that your worth depends on their acceptance. This isn't love. It's control. It's emotional manipulation disguised as connection. You start to minimize yourself. You speak less. You express less. You stop sharing your wins because you know they won't celebrate them. You stop dreaming out loud because you know they'll laugh or question you. You live in a constant state of emotional shrinking, afraid that if you take up too much space, you'll be punished with silence or sarcasm. That shrinking begins to shape your self-image. This dynamic is especially dangerous because it doesn't look abusive from the outside. To others, the person might seem charming, supportive, even kind. But behind closed doors, they chip away at your self-esteem with precision. They know what to say to trigger your insecurities. They know how to hide their contempt behind polite smiles. They never have to raise their voice. Their control comes through quiet erosion, not overt domination. The most painful part is realizing that you no longer recognize yourself. The vibrant, expressive, confident version of you feels distant. You begin to see how much you've dimmed your light to fit inside someone else's shadow. And even when you try to reclaim your strength, they respond with resistance. They tell you you've changed. They say you're being dramatic. They warn you not to forget who you really are, but what they mean is, don't outgrow the version of you that made them feel powerful. This is how bad people keep others small, not by force, but by persistent discouragement. They wrap their control in false concern, their jealousy in fake praise, and their criticism in dry humor. And when you try to confront it, they act surprised. They say things like, "I was just being honest," or asterisk, "You're reading too much into it," asterisk, but your heart knows the truth. You feel the weight of their words long after they're spoken.